Yes, a very good morning to everybody. Today we are going to discuss a very beautiful poem, A Thing of Beauty, written by John Keats. John Keats, he was born in 1790 and he died in 1821. That means at the age of 26. So he's considered to be one of the greatest poets of the 19th century. He was the last one to of the 19th century to become a poet and the first one to die. Even though he died at a very young age, at the age of 26, he's still considered to be the greatest poets of the romantic era, the 19th century. And the kind of, and he's widely known for the odes. If any one of you, if some of you would pursue literature later on, then you would be reading, you would be studying about the great odes that he has written. So he belonged to a very poor family. He was born to a family of his father was a stable keeper, and his life was full of tragedies. At a very young age, he became orphan at the age of 15, and the kind of surroundings that he had, they were not meant, they were not like as if they were going to inspire him to become a poet. But still, he had a great interest in literature. And even though he worked as an apprentice to a surgeon and during the big in his youth, during the early years of his youth, but still he left it, and he devoted his entire time to literature. Okay, so it's written on. He was born in 1795 and died in 1821. Although trained to be a surgeon, okay, so he had become an apprentice to a surgeon. He decided to devote himself wholly to poetry. His secret, his power to sway and delight the readers, lies primarily in his gift for perceiving the world and living his moods and aspirations in terms of language. Okay, so he perceived the world through language. Okay, the following is an excerpt. What is an excerpt? Everybody must be knowing the meaning of excerpt. What is an excerpt? This is A Thing of Beauty is an excerpt. Yes, it's a part of his that is taken from his poem Endymion, a poetic romance. It is based on a Greek legend in which Endymion, a beautiful young shepherd and poet who lived on Mount Latmus, had a vision of Cynthia. And who was Cynthia? Cynthia was the moon goddess. And this enchanted youth, he resolved to seek her out, and so he just wandered away through the forest and down the sea. So he kept wandering here and there in pursuit of the moon goddess. Okay, so he wrote this poem Endymion. That This is just a part of that poem, as Keats himself wrote to one of his friends, is a test of his powers of imagination and his powers of invention. Okay, so if I ask you a question, how are you going to how would you define the poem is A Thing of Beauty? How do you define beauty? What is beauty according to you? How do you define it? Yes, Akarshita. Yes, very good. So anybody else? Anybody else who would like to define beauty? It's nature, yes, all the natural things, things that we find in nature, anything which makes one happy or amused. Very good. So it's beautiful. So he says, the poem starts with, I'll just recite the poem once and then we'll do the explanation part. Says, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits, such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon. For simple sheep and such are daffodils, with the green world they live in and clear rills, that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season, the mid forest break, rich with the sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms. we have imagined for the mighty dead, all lovely tales that we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring unto us from the heavens brink. So he says, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. This is one of the most important lines of his. He's remembered for this line. And so he says, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. So what is forever means? Forever means what? Very, it's ending. It is everlasting. It says a beautiful things. It gives you joy, which is eternal, with joy which is intransient, which is infinite, which remains with you forever. Its loveliness increases, and it will never pass into nothingness. So what does it mean? What does he mean by this? That the beauty of the loveliness of a beautiful thing, it lasts forever and it keeps on increasing. It doesn't diminish, it keeps on increasing, and it will never pass into nothingness. You cannot say that. What does he mean when he says it will never pass into nothingness? Just saying the same thing. Yes, it will never come to nothing, or it will never end. It it won't lose its value. Yes, it will never lose its value. It will never fade away. It will never end. Yes. So beautiful, he says, are worth lose its being. Yes, they're worth treasuring. And he's talking about here the intransient nature of beautiful things. What do you mean by transitory, intransitory, transient, intransient? What do you mean by this? We've read it, we've done it earlier also. What is intransient? Not be transferred or transported, that not passing away. It's something which is permanent, something which is not changeable. Okay, so he wants to say that it will give you the same pleasure repeatedly, and the pleasure that it would give, it sometimes it keeps on increasing also. Okay, so it takes away all the darkness from your life, it takes away all the gloom, all the sadness from your life. So it will keep a bower quiet for us, and sleep full of sweet dreams. We see he wants to say here, the poet wants to say that the thing of beauty, it keeps in store for us many things. For example, a quiet bower. What is a bower? Bower. What is it? It's a shade, a kind of a shade, a pleasant place in the shade by under a tree. Yes. So he says it will keep many gifts for us. For example, a bower, quiet bower for us. Then sleep full of sweet dreams, and health, and quiet breathing. So all these are gifts that are given to us by a thing of beauty. So he says, what is sweet full of, so you can make a comparison of a beautiful thing with all these, similes that he has told us. So he gives us the kind of joy, the kinds of pleasure that a thing of beauty gives us is similar to a joy that you get when you get a blissful sleep, that you get when you have a deep sleep, which is full of pleasant dreams, which is full of comforting dreams. Okay, so what is quiet breathing? Quiet breathing ka matlab kya hai? When you are at peace with yourself, when you're relaxed, only then you breathe quietly. So that means that makes your breathing very easy, that makes your breathing very comfortable. Okay, so whose, according, if we just look at these first five lines, whose loveliness will keep on increasing? Lavnish. So I want to just make sure whether you people are actually there or only a handful of students are there, those who are responding. कि सिर्फ आप लॉग इन करके ज्वाइन करके फोन को साइड पे रख के चले जाते हो, या सो जाते हो, या कहीं और चले जाते हो. तो आप yes no में भी जवाब नहीं दे रहे हो. Lavnish, speak up. Whose loveliness will keep on increasing? If you're not able to speak, if you're not able to unmute your mic, then at least you can type. The kind of questions that I'm asking you, they're just one-liners. Sometimes you know one word reply. Hanji. Vasudha, whose loveliness will keep on increasing? Yes, Jasmine? Yes, nature, but here, according to the poet, what does he say? Whose loveliness will keep on increasing? Batao? a beautiful thing, loveliness of a thing of beauty. So that is why it says a thing of beauty is joy forever, its loveliness increases. Yes. So, and what do you mean? Find out a phrase which says that a beautiful thing is immortal, it is forever. Find out a phrase from these lines which tell you that a beautiful thing is immortal. Is the joy forever? Yes, very good. And also, it will never pass into nothingness. Okay, so these two lines, a thing of beauty is a joy forever and it will never pass into nothingness. And why do we need sweet dreams, health, and quiet breathing in our lives? Yes, why do we need such things as sweet dreams, quiet breathing? Hmm? Batao, why do we need? Very simple question. It's a general question. Even if you have not followed these four lines, you can answer it. Why do we need health? Why do we in peace with ourselves for happiness? So our life becomes less stressful. Yes, yes. So all for all these reasons, because there's so much of difficulties that we face in our day-to-day life. There's so much of stress. There's so much of strain. Be relaxed. Yes, good. Okay. So then he says, therefore, on to observe ourselves to do work without stress. Yes. Okay. So he says, therefore, on every morrow. Now, morrow here means every day, every next day, tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow se aaya ye word morrow. Therefore, on every morrow are we reading a flowery band to bind us every morrow, every morning, every other day, every morning, are we reading a flowery band to bind us to the earth? So, what, according to the poet, does beauty inspire us to do every morning? क्या inspire करती है वो हमें करने के लिए? To read a flowery band to bind us to the earth. So, what does a beautiful thing do? It keeps our bond with nature alive. ठीक है, हमारे नेचर के साथ जो बॉन्ड है उसको वो जिंदा रखती है. So every morning, what do? We read, we weave. हम weave क्या करते हैं? We weave a wreath of flowers which binds us to the earth, making us life a peaceful and making a life very peaceful and joyous. So what does he mean by this? That we are reading a flowery band that binds us to the earth. He wants to say that we renew, we revive, we keep our link with the earth, with the nature alive. ठीक है, when we weave a band of flowers. ठीक है, एक हम जैसे आपने फ्लारी बैंड देखा होगा जब आप किसी की शादी पे जाते हैं, वो एक बैंड सा होता है. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे इसका क्या मतलब है? दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू रिन्यू, वी आर ट्राइंग टू रिवाइव आवर लिंक विद द नेचर. ठीक है, ये जो फ्लारी बैंड है, इट कीप्स आवर लिंक विद द नेचर constant and it keeps it alive, it keeps it unbroken. And then he says, spite of despondence. Spite kahan se aaya word? In spite se. In spite का क्या मतलब होता है? What does in spite mean? He says, spite of despondence. What do you mean by spite? In spite of. ठीक है, इसके होने के बावजूद. ठीक है, in spite of despondence. And what is despondence? What is despondence? Yes, when you feel hopeless, when you feel sad. Okay, so when there is lot of loss of hope, when there is sadness, when there is disappointment, and we have these feelings, discouragement, where we have all these in our life. So in spite of all these feelings that are there around us of the inhuman, and why do we feel despondent? Why do we feel discouraged? Why do we feel sad? Because of the inhuman dearth of noble natures. What is dearth? Dearth means scarcity of something, किसी चीज की कमी होना, shortage होना. Of the inhuman, because there's so much, because there's lack of people with noble natures around us. ठीक है, so लोग हमारे आसपास जो हैं, because the people that are around us, they sometimes give a lot of negative vibes to us. Okay, there's so much of negativity around us, because of dejection, because of disappointment, because of uncertainty, and because of lack of noble natures, of the gloomy days. Gloomy का मतलब क्या होता है? Very simple. Gloomy mean, yes, it is sad, because of sometimes we feel very sad, sometimes the days are not good. So in spite of all these things, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways, okay, of Unhealthy and over darkened ways का मतलब क्या है? The kinds of difficulties that we encounter in our life, the trials and tribulations of our life, the difficult situations that we sometimes find ourselves in during our course of life, in the journey of life. So, in order to, because of the wrong ways, yes. So he says that in spite of all these things, made for our searching, we have to keep on finding. We have to keep on looking for. In spite of all these things, there is beauty around us, and we have to find that beauty. We have to keep on looking for that beauty. Some shape of beauty moves away the pall. What is pall? Pall. Yes. No, it means a dark cloud of sadness. Yes. From our dark spirits, और ये beautiful things कौन सी हैं? In spite of all the sadness that surrounds us, he says, whenever we see beautiful things, that sight of beautiful things, it makes us happy. And in, in spite of the fact that sometimes we remain very pessimistic. What is pessimistic? Pessimism क्या होता है? What is the difference between optimism and pessimism? क्या फर्क है? Yes, not inactive, but to be always looking at the negative sides of the things. So in spite of the negative thoughts that are there around us, in spite of our pessimism that is there around us, that is sometimes blocking our way, that is sometimes obstructing our way towards happiness. In spite of hopelessness, in spite of gloom, in spite of sadness, we are able to find our happiness. And how are we able to find our happiness? How are we able to find our happiness? कैसे? Batao, speak up. By looking at the beautiful things, in the beautiful objects of nature. And what are these beautiful objects of nature? So he says it can be in any shape, it can be in any form. So he says beauty in any shape or form, such the sun, the moon, trees. So these are the different images of beauty that the poet talks about. So he says there is beauty everywhere. So you have to have eyes to see it. Okay. So he says through various objects of nature, and he says that there is simple beauty in sun, moon, in old trees, young trees, sprouting a shady boon. For simple sheep, there's beauty in uh, sheep also. And there is beauty in daffodils, beautiful flowers like daffodils, with the green world they live in. Green world they live in का मतलब क्या है? Green world they live in the forests, yes, and the green pastures, with the green world they live in, and clear rills. What are rills? Rills क्या होती हैं? What are rills? Rill is a small what? Small stream, a small river. Okay, this is, and all these are beautiful things that for themselves a cooling covert make. What literary device has been used here? Cooling covert. कूलिंग कवर्ट में कौन सा लिटरेरी डिवाइस यूज किया गया बच्चे बताओ? यस, एलिट्रेशन दैट फॉर देमसेल्व्स अ कूलिंग कवर्ट मेक. ठीक है. सो कूलिंग कवर्ट का मतलब क्या हुआ? व्हाट इज कूलिंग कवर्ट? एलिट्रेशन तो हो गया, पर कूलिंग कवर्ट होता क्या है? shelter of bushes where animals can take rest and they can hide. Okay. And then he says against the hot season, whenever uh, there is a during the peak of summer season, when the animals they want to take shelter, when they want to hide, and they go and take shelter under the uh, in some bushes, under trees. Okay, so this is what he wants to say. So I would just ask a few questions from these 4-5 lines. There is one more reference to a simple sheet that you can write down. ठीक है, ये आपको आ सकता है क्योंकि ये बिब्लिकल रेफरेंस है. दिस यू कैन राइट डाउन इन योर बुक्स ओनली, क्योंकि अगर आप कहीं रजिस्टर पे लिखोगे फिर आपको याद नहीं रहेगा. सो हेयर sheep is an embodiment of what? Something which is somebody who's very innocent. Lambs and sheep, they are embodiments of innocence, and they are also followers of whom? अगर आपने थोड़ी सी बाइबल पढ़ी है तो किसके फॉलोअर्स हैं बताओ? यस, ऑफ जीसस क्राइस्ट. ठीक है. So here he is, Jesus Christ has been viewed as a shepherd. So you can write it down. यहाँ पे simple sheep क्या symbolize कर रहा है? When he's talking about sheep, you can say he is talking about various beautiful objects of nature. You can say that he's talking about trees, he's talking about flowers, he's talking about sun, and he's talking about moon, everything. But when he's talking about simple sheep, there is a symbolical reference to Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ has been envisioned as a shepherd, and he's surrounded by his flock of sheep, and the sheep are his followers. So the poet has specifically made a reference to sheep as symbols of what? शीप किसके फॉलोअर्स है? जीसस क्राइस्ट के. तो यहाँ पर किसके लिए रेफरेंस किसका है? यहाँ पे सिंबल्स ऑफ कॉमन पीपल हु हैव फेथ. Symbols of their sheep are symbols of common people who have faith in the beautiful things provided by the blessings by God. Okay, so यहाँ पे symbolic reference है simple sheep का. अगर आपसे पूछा जाए तो आप ये describe कर सकते हो. ठीक है. And we've talked about green world they live in. आपको पता ही है green world, the green pastures, the forests, which provide a kind of a support system to all the plants and animals. Okay, so if we see that we cannot be happy living away from nature, so it is in the green world that the animals and birds and even the human beings, they find true joy and happiness of life. Okay, clear rills मैंने आपको बता दिया. They refer to small streams and rivers. और वो किसका सोर्स है? किसका सोर्स होती हैं clear rills? Rivers and streams are source of what? They're source of water. And what is water? What is water? बताओ. What does it do? It is essential. Yes, it is very, very essential. The most essential thing for survival, for our survival, for air and water. Okay, so he says, and the clear is that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season the mid forest break. अब mid forest break को भी आप underline करो, और rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. तो blossoms की बात कर रहे हैं हम, flowers की बात कर रहे हैं, musk rose flowers की बात कर रहे हैं, which are we are talking about the forest, thick forest undergrowth, जिसके बीच बीच में क्या उग रहा है? Which is full of musk rose flowers. The fragrance of musk rose blooms. ठीक है. Mid forest break का मतलब है forest undergrowth, bushes हैं, और वहां पे क्या है? Which is full of, which is brimming with musk rose flowers. And then very important, next line is very, very important. And such too is the grandeur of the dooms. यहाँ पे पहले वो natural beautiful things की बात कर रहे हैं, John Keats. And then he's talking about, he says that there is beauty in life. And then in total contrast to it, towards the end of the poem, he wants to stress on the fact that there is beauty even in death, even in decay. So that is why he says, such too is the grandeur. What is grandeur? Grandness, magnificence. किसकी death की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे? He says, so he's talking about two contradictory aspects of life and death. Okay, he says, he wants to say that every season of life, and he wants to say that every aspect of life, it contrasts with the other and it has its own charm. So what do you understand by grandeur of the dooms? यहाँ पे वो किसकी बात कर रहे हैं? God's judgment, great people's death. Yes, he's talking about, and who are those great people? Great people कौन से हैं? कौन हो सकते हैं ये great people? Somebody had written great people's death. Who are these great people? Who inspire, yes, who inspire others, and who have done something in their life, or who have sacrificed their lives for the others. Okay, so he wants to say such all lovely tales that we have heard or read, जिनके बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं, who have achieved something, जिनके बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं, जो कुछ कर गुजर चुके हैं, ठीक है, जो हिस्ट्री क्रिएट कर चुके हैं, ठीक है, और हम पढ़ते हैं उनके बारे में. Such lovely tales that we have heard or read about them, we have imagined for the mighty dead. ठीक है, तो एक स्टेप आगे जाके अब वो बोल रहा है कि ब्यूटी सिर्फ नेचर में ऐसे नहीं है, लाइफ में नहीं है. देयर इज ब्यूटी इवन इन द ग्रैंड sacrifices that some people, some warriors have made. ठीक है, जो सोल्जर्स हमारे लिए अपनी लाइफ सेक्रीफाइस करते हैं, सिर्फ सोल्जर्स नहीं, जो भी किसी के लिए कुछ कर गुजरते हैं, ठीक है, अपनी लाइफ सेक्रीफाइस कर देते हैं, और उनकी स्टोरीज हम बाद में पढ़ते हैं. द स्टोरीज दैट वी हैव हर्ड, दैट वी हैव read in praise of those brave warriors, okay, who had sacrificed their lives for some noble cause, right? They also, when we read about them, they make us very, we are in all praise for them. So they make us, they are also beautiful. So these, because these tales, they inspire us, they motivate us to do something in life. Okay, so then, और mighty dead का मतलब क्या हुआ, अभी बताया मैंने आपको. What do you mean by mighty dead? Mighty means powerful. कौन है mighty dead का क्या मतलब है? The great men, yes, all those warriors, the brave men who have sacrificed their life and who have glorified death by embracing it, जिन्होंने मौत को गले लगा लिया है very gracefully. Okay, so and then he says an endless fountain of immortal drink. So this is a metaphor that the poet has used here, an endless fountain of immortal drink. So he wants to say here, what the poet wants to say is that beauty in all aspects of life, whether it is in growth or it is in death or decay, is an endless fountain from where we can drink the immortal elixir of life. So he wants to say that beauty is perennial in nature. And what is perennial? Perennial का क्या मतलब होता है? Beauty is a great source of motivation. Beauty is perennial, it is everlasting, and it is a gift which is showered on us by God, by the divine powers, which remains forever, pouring unto us from the heavens brink. So he wants to say that beauty is the greatest gift that God has given us, that is showered upon us by God from the heavens, from the divine powers. And this beauty is eternal, this beauty is forever, this beauty is perennial, this beauty is everlasting, and in whose glory, in the glory of this beauty, the people on earth, common people like us, they derive their source of happiness, they derive their source of joy. Okay, pouring unto us from the heavens brink. Brink का मतलब क्या होता है? What is brink? What do you mean by brink? The edge, from the edge of heaven. So he's talking about the place where man leaves behind earthly sorrows, all the sorrows that he feels and faces in his life, all the worries, to accept heavenly peace and to accept heavenly pleasures. Okay, so this is what he means by this last line, from the heavens brink. Okay, let me ask you a few questions. Just look at, because the last lines are very, very important. If I asked you, what is the endless fountain and what is the effect of it on the human beings, on us? What is the endless fountain? An endless fountain of immortal drink. Yes, beauty and inspiration. He wants to say that beauty in any form, in all aspects, actually, in all respects, in every aspect, whether it is in growth or it is in decay or it is in death, it is an endless fountain of immortal drink. And why is it an endless fountain of immortal drink? Endless क्यों है? Immortal drink क्यों है? क्योंकि yes, because it is an everlasting source of motivation for us. It is an everlasting, it goes on forever, and it is a source of immense joy to us. Very good. So it is a source of motivation, it is a source of joy, it is a source of inspiration, because we derive eternal joy from all these this beauty. Okay, what is the philosophy of life that is highlighted in the poem? What is the philosophy of life that is highlighted in the poem? Batao. What does beauty do to us? Yes, Akarshita. He wants to say that beauty removes those, that gloom for our lives. Life is beautiful. We should embrace it. We should see beauty around us everywhere and in everything. So it removes all the pain. It removes all the suffering. from human life. It gives us joy. It gives us a kind of a refuge. And what is refuge? What is refuge? What is refuge? Yes, it means shelter. So it gives us a kind of refuge from all the sufferings and pains, the trials and tribulations that we face in our life, because it has the power to uplift us, to uplift our mood, lifts the veil of gloom from our lives. There is a lot of sadness, there is a lot of, sometimes that is why he says, of in spite of the gloomy days. So it removes and it lifts the veil of gloom, and it paves the way for what? It paves a path of optimism in our lives. It paves a path of hope in our life. And he wants to stress upon this fact that we are not to just see beauty in, we don't just see beauty in the natural things around us. It is everywhere, even in death, even in decay. And that is why he talks about the tales of the mighty dead, all the warriors, or the people, or the all the brave hearts who have sacrificed their lives for a noble cause. Nakul had written something. I will just read it out. He says, yes, importance of nature is depicted by the poet. Some shape of beauty brings love and happiness in our lives. Beauty is present all around us, in nature or person and everything. We just need to see it to get away from stress and sorrows of our lives. So that this means the poet gives a lot of hope, and he wants us, he paves a way of optimism, of always, a path to always look at the brighter side of life, never be pessimistic in our lives. Okay. How does beauty leave an indelible imprint on our mind? What do you understand by this word indelible? How does beauty leave an indelible imprint on our mind? How does it leave an indelible? What is indelible? Something which, yeah, which is engraved, which is deep, which cannot erased. ठीक है, जिसको आप मिटा नहीं सकते हो. ठीक है, ऐसा impression जिसको आप कभी हटा नहीं सकते हो, किसको भूल नहीं सकते हो. Yes, we cannot forget it, and we cannot erase it from our minds. So how does it leave an indelible imprint on our mind? ये क्यों ऐसा इम्प्रिंट छोड़ के जाता है हमारे माइंड पे, जो कि परमानेंट है, जिसको मिटाया नहीं जा सकता? बताओ. Mute your mics for any reason. It never fades into nothingness. Yes, it relaxes us, it soothes us, it inspires us, and also it multiplies. That is why he says its loveliness increases. It never passes into nothingness. वो multiply करता है. ठीक है? It leaves a positive impact on us. Whenever we think about it, we feel so happy. So its joy multiplies. It never fades in our memory. It provides us peace, joy, calmness, serenity forever. Okay? I'll just read out. Many students have written the answer. A beautiful thing, effects are so incredible. Yes, the effects are so unbelievable. And then a beautiful thing gives us eternal and everlasting happiness and leaves an indelible impression on our mind that we are able to relive. Yes, whenever you think about the beautiful thing, you relive those moments. They're revived into your mind, you remember them, you relive them. The wonderful feeling we get from it each time we think about it. It pours constantly into our hearts from heaven. It never fades. It relaxes us and it increases positive thoughts. It remains in our memory, and during tough times, it helps us to overcome negative thoughts. Good. It's good that many students are answering. I want more participants. I want all of you to participate in this. Now, this poem is not complete. We've just done the explanation part. This is not complete. We have to do the theme. We have to do the all the literary devices and various other important things that we would be discussing the next time we meet, and that would be on Saturday. So I'll just move on to your attendance part today. And please submit your work in time. Okay?